The massive alien ship floated in the dark space near Earth's moon. Its surface was smooth and silver, stretching for miles in every direction. Inside the ship, Ambassador Zethkar looked at the small blue planet through the viewing window. His 4 arms moved in patterns that showed his excitement. Finally, Zethkar said to his assistant, "Another primitive world to add to our collection." The ambassador was tall and thin, with purple skin that sparkled under the ship's lights. His species had been exploring space for thousands of years. They had found many worlds with life, and every time it was the same story. The aliens would arrive, the local species would surrender, and then they would become workers for the Galactic Council. Earth would be no different. Or so Zethkar thought. Captain Jake Morrison was having a normal day on his patrol ship when everything changed. He was drinking coffee and reading reports when his communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we're getting a signal from something big near the moon," said the young officer. Jake put down his coffee. "How big?" "Really big, sir. Bigger than anything we've ever built." Jake's ship, the Defender, was one of Earth's newest military vessels. It was armed with nuclear missiles and railguns, but it was tiny compared to what was approaching Earth. Jake had been in the military for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like this. The alien message came through in perfect English, which surprised everyone on the bridge. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the third planet," the voice said. It sounded cold and distant. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Altarian Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. Your world has been selected for integration into our civilization." Jake looked at his crew. They all looked worried and confused. "Integration?" Jake asked into the microphone. "Yes," Zethkar replied. "Your species will be relocated to work colonies where you can serve the greater galactic community. Your planet's resources will be managed by more advanced species. This is how things are done throughout the galaxy." Jake felt his blood getting hot. "And what if we say no?" There was silence for a moment. Then Zethkar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Say no? You cannot say no. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. You have no choice in this matter." Jake had fought in 3 wars on Earth. He had seen good people die fighting for their freedom. The idea that some alien thought humans would just give up made him angry. "Well, here's our answer," Jake said. "Go home." "Impossible," Zethkar said. "You will surrender your world immediately, or we will take it by force." Jake looked at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Amy Brooks. She was young but smart, and she had been working on Earth's defenses for 2 years. Amy nodded at Jake, telling him she was ready for whatever came next. "Amy, are our weapons ready?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. All systems are online." Jake spoke into the microphone again. "Ambassador, you've got 10 minutes to leave our space. After that, we start shooting." Zethkar was shocked. In 300 years of first contact missions, no species had ever threatened him. Most primitive worlds begged for mercy or tried to negotiate for better working conditions. None had ever told the Galactic Council to leave. "You dare threaten us?" Zethkar said. "We have weapons that can destroy your entire planet." "Maybe," Jake said, "but you'll have to get past us first." The alien ambassador was furious. He ordered his escort ships to move forward and destroy the small human vessel. 3 Altarian warships, each 10 times larger than Jake's ship, moved toward the Defender. Amy watched her screens as the alien ships approached. "Captain, they're charging weapons." "Fire everything we have," Jake ordered. The Defender's missiles, launched first. Nuclear warheads designed to destroy cities flew toward the alien ships. But the aliens had shields that stopped the explosions. The missiles burst into bright flashes of light but did no damage. The alien ships fired back with energy beams that could cut through steel like paper. The Defender's armor held, but barely. "Shields down to 60%, Amy reported. Jake knew they couldn't win a straight fight. The aliens were too strong. But Jake had learned something important during his years as a soldier. Sometimes the best way to win is to do something your enemy doesn't expect. "Amy, can you overload our communications array?" Amy looked confused. Sir, that would destroy our ability to talk to Earth. Can you turn it into a weapon? Amy's eyes got wide as she understood what Jake was thinking. Maybe, sir, if I reverse the power flow and channel it through the main transmitter. Do it. While Amy worked on her plan, Jake did something else the aliens didn't expect. Instead of running away or trying to fight at long range, he flew the defender straight at the closest alien ship. What is he doing? Zethkar asked his weapon officer. Unknown, Ambassador. No species has ever used a ramming attack against our ships. The aliens didn't know how to respond. Their weapons were designed for long-range battles between big ships. They had never fought anyone crazy enough to fly directly at them. Jake's ship flew between the alien vessels, too close for their big weapons to target effectively. The defenders' railguns fired constantly, shooting metal slugs at incredible speed. The shots were too small to destroy the alien ships, but they damaged sensors and communication equipment. Ready, Captain, Amy said. Fire it. Amy pressed a button, and the defender's communications array exploded outward in a burst of electromagnetic energy. The pulse hit all three alien ships at once, shorting out their electrical systems and causing their shields to fail. For 30 seconds, the alien ships were helpless. Jake used those 30 seconds well. The defender's remaining missiles launched at the closest alien ship, and without shields, the nuclear warheads did their job. The alien ship broke apart in a ball of fire. The other two alien ships got their systems back online, but they had never seen anything like what just happened. One human ship, much smaller and weaker than theirs, had destroyed one of their vessels using tactics they had never encountered. Retreat, Zethkar ordered. Return to the fleet. The alien ships moved away from Earth, leaving Jake and his crew floating in space among the wreckage. Did we just win? Amy asked. Jake looked at the pieces of alien metal drifting past their ship. We won this fight, but I think this is just the beginning. Jake was right. As his crew repaired their ship and collected alien technology from the wreckage, Zethkar was already sending messages to the Galactic Council. The message was simple but alarming. The humans had fought back. They had used weapons and tactics that no other species had ever tried. They had turned their own equipment into weapons in the middle of a battle. Most importantly, they had shown no fear when facing impossible odds. These humans are different, Zethkar reported to his superiors. They do not surrender. They do not negotiate. They fight as if their lives depend on every battle. The Galactic Council had rules for dealing with primitive species, but those rules assumed that all intelligent life was basically the same. They assumed that when faced with superior technology, any reasonable species would surrender. But humans, as the galaxy was about to learn, were not reasonable. They were something much more dangerous. They were survivors. 6 months had passed since the first battle near Earth's moon. The massive space station that served as the Galactic Council's headquarters was buzzing with worried activity. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the great meeting hall, their voices creating a noise that sounded like a storm. Fleet Admiral Zenthara stood at the center of the room. Her crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. She had commanded fleets for over 200 years, and she had never lost a battle. But the reports coming from human space made her nervous. The situation is worse than we first believed, Zenthara announced to the council. Her voice was like the sound of wind through crystal caves. These humans do not follow any known patterns of warfare. Council member Torgesh, a large being that looked like a walking tree, waved his branches in confusion. How can this be? They are a primitive species. Their technology is basic. Their ships are small. That is exactly the problem, Zenthara replied. Every other species we have encountered fights in predictable ways. They build bigger ships, stronger weapons, better shields. They fight to win territory or resources. But humans fight as if every battle decides whether their entire species lives or dies. The Admiral activated a holographic display that showed recent battles. In each image, human ships were outnumbered and outgunned, but they kept fighting in ways that made no sense to the alien observers. In the Battle of Mars, 50 human ships faced 300 of our vessels, Zenthara explained. They should have surrendered immediately. Instead, They used their cargo ships as bombs, crashed damaged vessels into our fleet, and fought until every single human ship was destroyed. But they took out over 100 of our ships with them. A murmur of disbelief went through the council chamber. "That is impossible," said Representative Klix Nara, whose species had never lost more than 10% of their forces in any battle. No commander would sacrifice his entire fleet. "Human commanders do," Senthara said grimly. "And it gets worse. We captured one of their leaders 3 weeks ago, a scientist named Dr. Lisa Carter. We thought we could learn about human weaknesses by questioning her." Dr. Lisa Carter sat in her prison cell on the council station, reading a book on alien biology. She was a small woman with brown hair and calm eyes, and she did not look like someone who could threaten the entire galaxy, but her captors had learned to fear her quiet intelligence. The door to her cell opened, and Interrogator Velmoth entered. He was a tall, thin creature with skin like wet leather, and eyes that could see into many different spectrums of light. "Dr. Carter," Velmoth said, "we need to understand your species. Why do humans fight so desperately? Why do you not surrender when defeat is certain?" Lisa looked up from her book and smiled. "Would you like me to tell you about human history?" "Yes," Velmoth said, sitting down across from her. "Humans have been fighting for millions of years," Lisa began. "Not just against other species, but against everything. Our planet tried to kill us with ice ages, volcanoes, earthquakes, and storms. Other animals tried to eat us. Diseases tried to wipe us out. We fought wars against each other over food, water, land, and ideas." Velmoth nodded. "Most species have similar histories." "No," Lisa said firmly. "Most species evolved on stable worlds where cooperation was the key to survival. Humans evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill us every single day. We learned that the only way to survive was to never give up, no matter how bad things got." She stood up and walked to the small window in her cell, looking out at the stars. "Every human knows stories about our ancestors who survived impossible situations. People who walked across entire continents to find food. Soldiers who held positions against armies 10 times their size. Explorers who sailed into unknown oceans knowing they might never return. We tell these stories to our children because they teach us the most important lesson of human existence." "What lesson?" Velmoth asked. "That as long as you're still breathing, you can still fight, and as long as you can still fight, you can still win." Velmoth felt a chill run through his body. He had interrogated thousands of prisoners from dozens of species, but none had ever spoken with such calm certainty about their own abilities. Meanwhile, on a human military base hidden in an asteroid field, Commander Rick Sullivan was planning something that would have seemed impossible to any alien strategist. He was going to rescue Dr. Carter from the most heavily defended station in the galaxy. Rick was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. He had fought in the defense of Earth and had seen what humans could do when they refused to accept defeat. "The station has over 10,000 alien defenders," said Sergeant Ben Parker, Rick's second-in-command. "We have 6 people. That's about right for a fair fight," Rick replied, causing his team to laugh. Rick's plan was simple in concept, but insane in execution. They would use a captured alien shuttle to approach the station, pretend to be prisoners being transported, and then fight their way to Dr. Carter's location. "Sir," said Corporal Kelly Wright, the team's explosives expert, "what if we can't get out?" "Then we don't get out," Rick said. "But we get Dr. Carter home first." The team spent 2 days preparing. They studied the station's layout, learned basic alien languages, and practiced fighting in the low-gravity environment they would encounter. Each team member knew they were probably going to die, but none of them considered backing out. The rescue mission began when their stolen shuttle approached the council station. Rick spoke into the communicator using broken alien language, claiming to be transporting human prisoners for questioning. The alien guards were not suspicious. Humans were new to the galaxy, and most aliens still thought of them as primitive and harmless. The shuttle was allowed to dock. The moment the airlock opened, Rick's team moved. They had studied alien psychology and knew that most species were not prepared for sudden, violent action. The guards in the docking bay were knocked unconscious before they could raise an alarm. Moving through the station's corridors, the humans used every advantage they could find. They crawled through ventilation systems, hid in storage areas, and moved with a speed and coordination that confused the alien security forces. When they finally reached Dr. Carter's cell, she was ready for them. "I heard the alarms," she said as Rick opened her door. "I figured you'd come eventually." "We don't leave people behind," Rick replied. Getting out of the station was harder than getting in. Alien security forces had figured out what was happening, and they were closing in from all directions. Rick's team fought running battles through corridors and maintenance areas, using captured alien weapons and their own determination. In the end, they made it to their shuttle with Dr. Carter, but not without cost. 2 of Rick's team were badly wounded, and their ship was damaged. But they had accomplished their mission. As their shuttle limped away from the station, Dr. Carter sat with Rick in the cockpit. "They're going to study everything that happened here," she said. "They're going to try to figure out how 6 humans infiltrated their most secure facility." "Let them study," Rick said. "Maybe they'll learn something useful." "What will they learn?" Rick looked out at the stars ahead of them. "That humans don't think like other species. We don't see a problem and look for the easy solution. We see a problem and we find a way to solve it, no matter what it costs." Back on the council station, Fleet Admiral Zenthara stood in the damaged docking bay, looking at the evidence of the human rescue mission. Her security chief, a being with multiple eyes and tentacles, was explaining what had happened. 6 humans defeated over 200 guards. The security chief reported. "They used tactics we have never encountered. They moved through our station, as if they had been planning this attack for years." Zenithara walked to where the humans had broken through a security door. The metal was twisted and bent in ways that showed incredible force had been applied. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," she ordered. "The human problem is more serious than we thought. These creatures do not fight for conquest or territory. They fight for each other, and they will never stop fighting as long as any of them are still alive." The security chief's tentacles trembled. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Zenthara looked out at the stars in the direction of human space. "We need to end this quickly, before they learn more about us. Because if these humans have time to prepare, if they have time to build up their forces and study our weaknesses..." She did not finish the sentence, but everyone in the room understood. The Galactic Council had always been the strongest force in the galaxy because they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to lose. Now they had found such an enemy, and they were beginning to realize that their thousands of years of easy victories had not prepared them for war against humans. The War Council meeting was the largest gathering of alien military leaders in galactic history. Representatives from 12 different species sat around a massive table that floated in the center of a war room. Holographic displays showed star maps, fleet positions, and detailed reports about human activities. War Prime Kethmore of the Savage clans stood at the head of the table. He was 8 feet tall with thick armor covering his entire body. His species had conquered 40 worlds through pure military strength, and he had never met an enemy he could not crush. "The human threat must be eliminated," Kethmore announced, his voice echoing through the room like thunder. "They have destroyed our ships, rescued their prisoners, and worst of all, they are spreading their ideas to other species." General Quindar of the Metal Horde nodded his agreement. His mechanical body clicked and whirred as he moved. 3 of our subject worlds have begun rebelling. The natives are using human tactics and refusing to surrender even when facing certain death. "How many ships do the humans have?" asked Admiral Vestara of the Ocean Worlds. 47 combat vessels," replied Intelligence Chief Morgak. "We have assembled a coalition fleet of 512 ships. The humans cannot possibly win." Kethmore slammed his armored fist on the table. "Numbers mean nothing if we do not understand how these creatures think. They do not fight like any other species we have encountered." The alien leaders spent hours discussing strategy. They would surround human space with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and then systematically destroy every human ship and settlement. It was a plan that had worked on every other world they had conquered, but none of them truly understood what they were about to face. On Luna Base, Colonel Maria Santos stood in the command center looking at displays that showed the massive alien fleet gathering at the edge of human space. She was a small woman with black hair and tired eyes, but she had been planning for this moment since the first alien ship had appeared 6 months ago. "How many ships are they bringing?" asked Major Tom Williams, her second in command. "Over 500," Maria replied calmly. 12 different species, all working together. "And we have 47 ships," Tom said, shaking his head. "This is impossible." Maria smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Tom, did you study the Battle of Thermopylae in school? The one where 300 Spartans held off 1,000,000 Persians? That's the one. The Persians had better numbers, better equipment, and more experience. But they didn't understand that some people would rather die fighting than live as slaves." Maria walked to a large map showing the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of human ships, while blue dots showed the approaching alien fleet. "The aliens think this is about numbers," she continued. "They think if they bring enough ships, we'll surrender. But they don't understand something important about humans." "What's that?" "We've been preparing for this our entire lives. Every human who ever lived has known that someday we might have to fight for our survival against impossible odds. Our parents told us stories about heroes who never gave up. Our teachers taught us about battles where the underdog won through courage and determination. Our soldiers trained for wars that might never come." Maria pointed to the map. "The aliens are coming here expecting to fight a normal battle, but we're not going to give them a normal battle." The Battle of Jupiter's Moons began 3 days later, when the alien coalition fleet entered human space. War Prime Kethmore expected to find human ships arranged in traditional battle formations, ready to fight a conventional space battle. Instead, he found something that confused and worried him. Human ships were scattered throughout the solar system in small groups, hiding behind asteroids, moons, and space stations. There was no main fleet, no central command ship, no obvious strategy. "What are they doing?" Kethmore asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, War Prime. Their formations make no sense. They cannot possibly coordinate an effective defense with their ships spread so far apart." Kethmore ordered his fleet to advance toward Earth. His plan was simple: destroy any human ships they encountered, then bombard the planet until the humans surrendered. The first surprise came when the aliens reached the asteroid belt. What they thought were normal space rocks suddenly exploded into action. Mining ships that had been hidden among the asteroids opened fire with industrial equipment that had been converted into weapons. Captain Andy Clark commanded one of these mining vessels. His ship was not designed for war, but his crew had spent months turning their rock-cutting lasers and ore haulers into deadly weapons. "Fire everything!" Andy ordered as alien ships passed nearby. His mining laser, designed to cut through solid rock, sliced through the armor of an alien cruiser like it was made of paper. Other mining ships launched chunks of metal ore at incredible speed, turning their cargo into kinetic weapons. The aliens were not prepared for this kind of attack. They had expected to fight warships, not converted civilian vessels. Several alien ships were destroyed before they could even return fire. But the real surprise was yet to come. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they found themselves under attack from directions they had never considered. Human ships emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, using the giant planet's gravity to increase their speed and surprise their enemies. Commander Pete Johnson led a squadron of fighters in a maneuver that no alien had ever seen before. His ships dove toward Jupiter's surface using the planet's atmosphere to hide from enemy sensors, then launched themselves out at incredible speed directly into the alien formation. "This is insane," said Johnson's wingman over the radio. "We're going to burn up in the atmosphere." "Maybe," Johnson replied. "But if we don't burn up, we're going to hit them so hard they'll never forget it." The human fighters emerged from Jupiter's atmosphere like bullets fired from a gun. They crashed into the alien fleet at speeds that should have destroyed them, but their ships held together just long enough to fire their weapons. War Prime Kethmore watched in amazement as his fleet was attacked from above, below, and all sides at once. Human ships appeared from impossible directions, struck with devastating effect, and then disappeared before his forces could respond. How are they coordinating these attacks? He demanded. We cannot detect their communications. His intelligence officer reported. They appear to be operating independently, but their timing is perfect. What the aliens did not understand was that humans had been practicing this kind of warfare for their entire history. Every human commander knew that when facing a superior enemy, you did not try to match their strength. You used speed, surprise, and the willingness to take risks that your enemy would never consider. The battle reached its peak when Private Danny Taylor and his Marine squad managed to board an alien dreadnought during the confusion. Their assault ship Freedom's Edge had been badly damaged, but Danny's commanding officer had ordered them to keep fighting. How are we supposed to board an enemy ship with a damaged vessel? Asked Sergeant Lucy Adams. Same way humans have always done impossible things, Danny replied. We improvise. The Freedom's Edge rammed into the alien dreadnought's docking bay at full speed. The impact destroyed the human ship, but it also created a hole in the alien vessel's armor. Danny and his squad, wearing spacesuits and carrying whatever weapons they could find, poured through the breach. The aliens inside the dreadnought had never faced human soldiers in close combat. Their species had evolved on a peaceful world where violence was rare, and they were not prepared for the intensity of human fighting. Danny's squad of 12 Marines fought through corridors designed for beings twice their size, using speed and aggression to overcome their disadvantages. They moved like a pack of wolves, supporting each other and attacking with a coordination that amazed their enemies. They fight like wild animals, reported one alien survivor. But they think like machines. Every move is calculated, but they show no fear of death. Within an hour, Danny's squad had captured the alien ship's bridge. The dreadnought's commander, a being that looked like a giant insect, stared at the humans in disbelief. How is this possible? The alien commander asked. We outnumbered you, 50-1. Danny removed his helmet and looked at the alien with calm eyes. You outnumbered us in this ship, but every human who ever lived outnumbers you in experience. We've been fighting impossible battles since we learned to walk upright. The Battle of Jupiter's Moons ended with the alien coalition fleet in full retreat. They had lost over 200 ships while the humans had lost only 30. But more importantly, they had learned something that terrified them. War Prime Kethmore sat in his command ship, watching the human ships regrouping around their planet. His fleet was beaten, his reputation was destroyed, and his understanding of warfare had been completely overturned. Send a message to the Galactic Council, he ordered. Tell them that the humans are not like other species. They do not fight to win territory or resources. They fight because fighting is what they are. His communications officer looked confused. What does that mean, War Prime? Kethmore stared out at the stars, thinking about what he had witnessed. It means that every other species in the galaxy fights because they have to. Humans fight because they choose to. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Jupiter's Moons, and the galaxy was a different place. Human ships now traveled beyond their solar system for the first time in their history, carrying both weapons and something even more dangerous: ideas about freedom and resistance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Council in the same chamber where aliens had once planned humanity's destruction. She was a small woman with gray hair and gentle eyes, but her presence made the alien representatives nervous. As humanity's chief diplomatic advisor, she had come to explain why humans were spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Honored members of the council, Elena began, her voice calm and clear. You have asked me to explain why human military tactics are so effective. You want to understand why your superior technology and greater numbers mean nothing against human forces. The council chamber was silent. Representatives from dozens of species listened carefully, hoping to learn the secret of human warfare. The answer is simple, Elena continued. Humans evolved on a death world. Council leader Zarthak, a being that looked like a walking mountain of crystal, leaned forward. Explain this term, death world. Elena activated a holographic display showing Earth. The image rotated slowly, showing continents covered with forests, deserts, oceans, and ice. To you, this planet might look beautiful and peaceful, Elena said. But Earth has been trying to kill everything that lives on it for billions of years. ice ages that froze entire continents, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, earthquakes that split the ground open, storms that could destroy entire cities. She changed the display to show Earth's wildlife. Images of lions, sharks, poisonous snakes, and other predators filled the air. Every other intelligent species in this galaxy evolved on stable worlds where cooperation was the key to survival. Your ancestors learned to work together because your planets were safe places where violence was rarely necessary. Elena looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. Human ancestors faced a different challenge. Our planet was full of creatures that wanted to eat us. Our weather tried to freeze us or burn us. Our ground shook beneath our feet. Diseases spread through our populations like wildfire. We learned that the only way to survive was to never give up, no matter how hopeless things seemed. She changed the display again, showing human history. Images of ancient battles, explorers crossing dangerous oceans, and people surviving in impossible conditions. Every human child learns stories about ancestors who survived when everyone thought they would die. We tell these stories because they teach us the most important lesson of human existence, that giving up means death, and as long as you're alive, you can still fight. Representative Klix Nara, whose species had never experienced warfare until meeting humans, spoke up. But why do you fight for other species? Why do humans risk their lives for aliens they barely know? Elena smiled. Because humans learned long ago that sometimes you have to fight for principles, not just survival. We fight for the idea that every intelligent being should be free to choose their own path. While Elena spoke to the council, Captain Steve Jackson was proving her point on a planet called Kepler 442b. His small fleet of human ships had arrived 3 weeks ago to find an entire civilization enslaved by the Altarian Empire. The Etherians were a peaceful species that looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin and large eyes. They had lived in harmony on their world for thousands of years until the Altarians arrived and forced them into labor camps. Steve stood in the ruins of an Etherian city, talking to Lirith, one of the local leaders. Around them, human soldiers worked alongside freed Etherian civilians to rebuild what the Altarians had destroyed. "I do not understand," Lirith said, his voice like wind through leaves. "Why do your people risk their lives for us? What do you gain from our freedom?" Steve looked at the Etherian leader with tired but determined eyes. "We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. That's enough. But you have been fighting for 3 months without supplies from your homeworld. Your ships are damaged. Your soldiers are exhausted, and still you continue. This makes no sense to us." Steve sat down on a piece of broken stone and gestured for Lirith to join him. "Let me tell you about human history. 500 years ago, there was a war on Earth where one group of humans tried to enslave another group because of the color of their skin." Lirith listened carefully as Steve continued. "The war lasted 4 years and killed millions of people. But the humans who opposed slavery never stopped fighting, even when they were losing, even when their own cities were burning. Do you know why?" "No," Lirith replied. "Because they understood that some things are more important than personal survival. Freedom is one of those things. The right to choose your own life is worth dying for." Steve stood up and looked at the Etherian settlement taking shape around them. "My soldiers are tired and far from home, but they keep fighting because they know that every Etherian child who grows up free makes the galaxy a better place." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of explosions in the distance. "Sergeant," Nancy Cooper ran up to Steve, her uniform dirty and torn from weeks of combat. "Captain, Altarian reinforcements just arrived in orbit. 50 ships, maybe more." Steve nodded calmly. "How many ships do we have left?" 8 that can still fight, sir." Lirith looked terrified. "You must retreat. Your small force cannot face such numbers." Steve smiled the same smile that had terrified alien commanders across the galaxy. "Lirith, you still don't understand humans very well. We don't retreat when people are counting on us." The battle that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the miracle of Kepler 442b. Steve's 8 damaged human ships faced 50 fresh Altarian warships in orbit above the planet. By all military logic, the humans should have been destroyed in minutes. Instead, they fought for 6 hours. Lieutenant Paul Martinez, piloting a fighter that was held together with repair patches and determination, led his squadron in an attack that no sane pilot would attempt. They flew directly into the Altarian formation, using their smaller size and desperate courage to cause chaos among the enemy ships. "This is crazy," his wingman said over the radio. "We're going to die." "Maybe," Paul replied, "but we're going to make them remember us." The human fighters darted between the massive Altarian ships like angry insects, striking at weak points and disappearing before the aliens could respond. They used every trick they had learned, every desperate tactic that human pilots had developed. Over years of fighting impossible battles, on the planet's surface, human Marines held defensive positions against Altarian ground forces that outnumbered them 20-1. Private Kevin Brown and his squad had been fighting for 2 days straight without sleep, but they refused to give ground. "Why don't these humans surrender?" asked an Altarian commander as his forces tried to break through human defensive lines. "They cannot surrender," replied his intelligence officer. "It is not in their nature. They will fight until every one of them is dead." But the Altarians had made a mistake. They thought the battle was just about military victory. They didn't understand that the humans were fighting for something much more important. Every Etherian on the planet was watching the battle. They saw human soldiers die protecting Etherian families. They saw human pilots sacrifice their lives to stop Altarian bombers from reaching civilian shelters. They saw humans choose death over retreat, again and again. And for the first time in Etherian history, they began to fight back. Leareth picked up a weapon dropped by a fallen human soldier. Around him, other Etherians did the same. They had spent their entire lives avoiding violence, but watching humans die for their freedom had awakened something they didn't know they possessed. "For the humans who died for us," Leareth said, raising the weapon. The Etherian uprising spread across the planet like wildfire. Millions of peaceful beings who had accepted slavery for years suddenly began attacking their oppressors with a fury that shocked everyone, including themselves. The Altarian ground forces found themselves facing not just a few hundred human soldiers, but an entire planet of newly awakened fighters who had learned the most dangerous lesson humans could teach, that freedom was worth any sacrifice. In orbit, Captain Steve Jackson watched his last ship's systems failing around him. His fleet was destroyed. His crew was dead or dying, but the battle was not over. "Captain," said his communications officer, blood running down her face from a head wound, "Etherian ships are rising from the planet. Hundreds of them." Steve looked at his display in amazement. The Etherians had converted their civilian vessels into warships and were launching themselves into space to join the fight. "They're attacking the Altarian fleet," the officer continued. "They're using human tactics." The tide of battle turned in that moment. The Altarian fleet, which had been prepared to fight a small number of human ships, suddenly faced thousands of Etherian vessels piloted by beings who had learned that some things were worth dying for. The Battle of Kepler 442b ended with complete Altarian defeat. Their fleet was destroyed, their ground forces were captured or killed, and an entire world had been liberated. But more importantly, the battle had taught the galaxy something new. The human way of thinking was spreading. 5 years after first contact, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before humans arrived. The old order of conquest and slavery was crumbling as world after world joined what had become known as the Terran Alliance. Ambassador Kate Phillips stood on the observation deck of Freedom Station, watching ships from dozens of species working together in ways that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Kate was a tall woman with red hair and sharp eyes who had spent her life solving problems that others thought were impossible. As humanity's chief ambassador, she had helped create something that had never existed in galactic history, an alliance based on choice rather than fear. "The reports are coming in from across the galaxy," said her assistant, Commander Rob Clark. 17 more worlds have declared independence from the old empires this month. They're all requesting membership in the alliance. Kate nodded, watching a group of young pilots from different species training together outside the station. Human instructors were teaching alien students how to fly in formations that emphasized flexibility and adaptation rather than rigid formations. How? Are the old empires responding? Kate asked. Not well, Rob replied. The Altarian Empire has lost half its territory. The crystalline hegemony is facing rebellions on 20 worlds. Even the savage clans are having trouble keeping their subject species in line. Kate smiled. Good. Fear only works as long as people believe they have no choice. Once they realize they can fight back and win, everything changes. The real test of the New Order was about to come. The Altarian Empire, desperate to maintain its power, had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history for one final assault on humanity's home system. They believed that if they could destroy Earth, the human ideas that were spreading across the galaxy would die with them. Admiral Tony Garcia stood in the command center of the battleship Liberty, watching displays that showed the approaching Altarian fleet. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands, but the numbers on his screens would have frightened any other commander in galactic history. How many ships are they bringing? Asked Captain Bill Turner, Tony's second in command. 8,000, Tony replied without emotion. And we have 1,200 human ships and about 3,000 allied vessels from other species. Bill whistled softly. Still outnumbered 2-1. Tony looked at his friend with the same calm confidence that had marked human commanders throughout the war. Bill, do you remember what happened to the last fleet that thought numbers were all that mattered? The Battle of Altaria Prime was different from every previous battle in the war. For the first time, humans were not fighting alone. Ships from the Etherean Republic flew alongside vessels from the peaceful world's union. Former slaves fought next to their liberators, all united by the human idea that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The Altarian fleet approached expecting to face desperate human resistance. Instead, they found something that confused and terrified them. A coordinated alliance that fought with human tactics, but included the unique abilities of dozens of different species. Commander Sam Murphy led a squadron of mixed human and Etherian fighters in the opening attack. The Etherians had natural abilities that made them excellent pilots, but they had learned human tactics that emphasized surprise and aggressive action. Remember what we practiced, Sam said over the radio to his mixed crew. Hit hard, move fast, and never let them predict what we're going to do next. The fighters struck the Altarian formation like a storm. Etherian pilots used their natural grace to perform maneuvers that human pilots couldn't match, while human pilots used their aggressive instincts to press attacks that Etherians would never have attempted alone. Working together, they were deadlier than either species could have been fighting separately. On the ground command ship, Admiral Tony Garcia watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The old galactic powers had spent thousands of years building empires based on the belief that some species were naturally superior to others. But humans had proven something different, that any species could be dangerous if they believed in themselves and fought for something that mattered. The Altarian Center is breaking, reported Lieutenant Sarah Davis from her position at the tactical station. Pursue them, Tony ordered. Don't let them regroup. The battle that decided the fate of the galaxy lasted for 18 hours. When it ended, the Altarian Empire's fleet was destroyed, their homeworld was surrounded, and their emperor was asking for terms of surrender. But Admiral Garcia offered something that no galactic conqueror had ever offered before. We don't want your empire, Tony told the defeated Altarian emperor over a communication link. We want your people to be free to choose their own government, hold elections, let your citizens decide how they want to live. The emperor was confused. You have defeated us. By galactic law, you now own our worlds. Humans don't own other people, Tony replied. We free them. The aftermath of the Battle of Altaria Prime marked the beginning of a new era in galactic history. The old empires collapsed one by one as their subject species demanded the same freedoms that humans had brought to other worlds. The age of conquest was over, replaced by an age of cooperation and mutual respect. Commander Lisa Hamilton stood at the podium in the main auditorium of the Terran Military Academy on Mars. Before her sat 300 young officers from over 50 different species, all learning the principles of military strategy that humans had developed through centuries of impossible battles. Lisa was a small woman with brown hair and kind eyes, but she commanded the respect of every being in the room. She had fought in the final battle against the Altarian Empire and had seen firsthand how human ideas had transformed the galaxy. Today we're going to talk about why humans are considered the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Lisa began, looking out at the diverse group of students. Can anyone tell me why? A young Etherian officer raised his hand. Because humans are stronger than other species? No, Lisa replied. Humans are actually weaker than most galactic species. A crystalline cadet spoke up. Because human technology is superior? Wrong again, Lisa said. When humans first encountered galactic civilization, our technology was thousands of years behind yours. The auditorium was silent as the students tried to think of other answers. The answer, Lisa continued, has nothing to do with physical strength or advanced weapons. Humans are dangerous because we approach every challenge as if our survival depends on the outcome. She activated a holographic display showing the battle history of the war. Every other species in the galaxy learned to fight in order to acquire resources or territory. You fight to gain something. Humans learned to fight in order to survive. We fight to avoid losing everything. A young officer from the peaceful worlds raised her hand. But why does that make such a difference? Lisa smiled. Because when you fight to gain something, you can always choose to stop fighting and walk away. But when you fight to survive, stopping means death. So humans never stop fighting, never stop adapting, and never stop looking for new ways to win. She changed the display to show images of human soldiers throughout the war. Look at these battles. In every case, humans were outnumbered and outgunned. By all military logic, they should have surrendered. But humans don't surrender when people are counting on them, because our entire species learned long ago that giving up means extinction. An older student, a veteran of the Liberation Wars, spoke up. Is that why humans fight for other species? Because you see every battle as a fight for survival? Exactly, Lisa replied. Humans learned that freedom is not something you can hold onto by yourself. If your neighbors are enslaved, eventually the slavers will come for you too. So we fight for everyone's freedom because we know that all freedom is connected. She walked to the window and looked out at the red landscape of Mars, where human and alien families now lived together in peace. The old galactic empires made a fundamental mistake, Lisa continued. They thought that power came from controlling others, but humans learned something different during our long history of struggle. Real power comes from helping others become strong enough to stand on their own. The class was quiet as they considered her words. A young human cadet in the back row raised his hand. Commander Hamilton, what makes humans different from all the other species? Why are we the ones who brought these ideas to the galaxy? Lisa turned back to face her students. That's an excellent question. The answer is that every other species in the galaxy had to become civilized in order to reach the stars. They learned cooperation and peace before they developed space travel. She paused, looking at each face in the room. Humans are different. We learned to build starships while we were still fighting wars on our own planet. We reached the galaxy while we were still a warrior species. That means we know what we're truly capable of when pushed to our limits. She walked back to the podium and looked directly at her students. But here's the most important part. We chose to become better. Humans could have conquered the galaxy through force, the way the old empires did. We had the weapons and the will to do it. But instead we chose to free people. We chose to build alliances instead of empires. We chose cooperation over conquest. Lisa's voice grew stronger as she continued.